Hey everyone, welcome back! Today we're diving into the world of Jujutsu Infinite, and specifically we're talking about cursed energy natures. Now, I know it's tempting to just rank these based on rarity, but let's be real, there's a lot more to it than that. Sure, rarer techniques often come with more power, but there are plenty of factors that make a technique truly shine. We're not just looking at the shiny gold ones, it's all about how you combine these powers and which ones work best together. When it comes to cursed energy natures, it's all about synergy. Some techniques might seem underwhelming at first glance, but when paired with the right abilities, they can completely turn the tide of battle. On the flip side, some of the rare ones might not always deliver the way you'd expect. So, in today's tier list, we're going to break it down for you, highlighting both the strengths and the weaknesses of each nature, and giving you the full picture of how to get the most out of your cursed energy. Let's jump in and see which ones really stand out. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking innate techniques in Jujutsu Infinite. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The innate techniques in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Boogie Woogie, Blood Manipulation, Blazing Courage, Construction, Cloning Technique, Cursed Speech, Tool Manipulation, and Straw Doll. Alright, let's get into some of the worst innate techniques in Jujutsu Infinite. The ones that really leave you scratching your head, wondering how they ever made it into the game. We're talking about D-tier abilities here, so buckle up because these ones are definitely the bottom of the barrel. You're probably going to want to avoid them unless you're in a very specific situation. First up, we've got Boogie Woogie. Sounds fun, right? Like you're going to be dancing your way through battles. But nah, this one's all flash and no substance. The mobility is decent, sure, but when it comes to damage, Boogie Woogie is pretty weak. For PvE, it just doesn't cut it. You'll be hopping around all day, but your enemies won't even notice. Not exactly the power move you're looking for in tougher fights. Then there's Blood Manipulation. Now, this one might seem like it could do some work in PvP, but in PvE, forget it. The damage is so low, it's hard to even notice you're hitting anything. It's one of those abilities that looks promising on paper, but when you get down to it, you're left wishing you picked something else. Sure, there's potential, but it's just not enough to make it worthwhile for the grind. Moving on to Blazing Courage. Okay, so it gives you some buffs, which is cool. But here's the kicker. The buffs you get from this innate are nothing compared to the rarer ones you can unlock later on. So while you're getting a little fire under your feet, it's not nearly as hot as what other techniques can provide. You're better off holding out for something with more punch. Now, Construction. This is one that'll have you scratching your head, wondering how it made it into the game at all. The damage output is laughable. Honestly, it's considered by many to be the worst innate in the game. It's so underwhelming that it's hard to recommend this one for anything other than a casual playthrough, and even then, you're probably better off with something else. And who could forget about Cloning Technique? You get clones, which sounds pretty cool, right? But here's the problem. The clones die way too fast, and the abilities you get from them, not worth the effort. You're left watching your little clones get destroyed before you can even capitalize on their presence. It's a technique that just doesn't hold up, especially in tougher scenarios where you need every bit of help you can get. Last but not least, let's talk about Cursed Speech and Tool Manipulation. Cursed Speech has some nice AoE potential, but once again, the damage is so weak that it feels more like a nuisance than an advantage, especially as you reach the later levels. And Tool Manipulation? 2 words: weak. It only has a couple of combat abilities, and even those won't do much to help you. If you want a combat innate, look elsewhere. These are just not going to get the job done. So there you have it. D-tier techniques in Jujutsu Infinite. These are the ones you're probably going to want to skip unless you're really looking for a challenge or just experimenting for fun. Trust me, you can do better with your picks. The innate techniques in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Cryokinesis and Ratio. Alright, let's dive into some of the lesser-known innate techniques in Jujutsu Infinite. Now, I know we're not talking about the flashy S-tier stuff that everyone raves about, but hey, every technique has its moment to shine, right? First up, we have Cryokinesis. It's one of those abilities that's not exactly terrible, but also doesn't make you want to jump out of your seat. It's got some solid damage, sure, but that's about it. There's nothing flashy about it. No cool effects or crazy utility, just a simple, straightforward technique. It's like the plain rice of the Jujutsu world. Sometimes it gets the job done, but you're definitely not choosing it for the fun factor. Next, we've got Ratio, which is a decent AoE ability that stands out a bit more than Cryokinesis. It's got better damage potential and it covers a bit more ground, which can definitely come in handy in crowded situations. But, and this is a big but, While it's better than some of the other D-tier techniques, it doesn't really bring anything new to the table. It's like that one friend who's always reliable, but never the life of the party. It gets the job done, but you wouldn't be too upset if it wasn't around. At the end of the day, both of these are solid enough to work with, but they don't exactly scream game changer. If you're looking for something with more punch, these won't give you that, and that's why they land in the C tier. They're good for filling a gap, but there are definitely better options out there if you want to maximize your potential in Jujutsu Infinite. So don't sleep on them, but also don't go out of your way to grab them unless you're really into their vibe. The innate techniques in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Heavenly Restriction and Judgman. Alright, let's talk about some of the innate techniques in Jujutsu Infinite that are a little, let's say, in between. You know, not terrible, but not the absolute best either. First up, we've got Heavenly Restriction. It's got great single target damage, which is fantastic when you're up against one tough opponent. But when it comes to clearing large groups of enemies, not so much. The range is short, so you'll be struggling to hit more than a couple of enemies at once. If you're looking for that wide-range destruction, this one's not going to cut it for you. Still, for those single target moments, it's pretty solid. Then, there's Judgman. Now, don't get me wrong, the Executioner's sword ability is a beast when it comes to taking down a single enemy. It's like a one-shot execution move, which sounds pretty awesome, right? But, and here's the catch, outside of that one killer move, the rest of the kit kinda falls flat in PvE situations. Its abilities are weak overall, making it a struggle if you're looking for something that can handle crowds of enemies or keep you going in extended battles. So, if you're in a one-on-one duel, Judgment could be your guy. But in larger chaotic fights, you might want to keep looking. To wrap it up, both of these techniques have their strengths, but they just can't hold up in every situation. Heavenly Restriction is amazing in those boss battles or against powerful enemies, but it's a bit of a letdown in mob fights. Meanwhile, Judgment brings some serious firepower with that Executioner's sword, but the rest of his abilities are pretty underwhelming. So, if you're choosing between them, think about the kind of fights you're getting into. Either way, they're decent, but not exactly top tier. The innate techniques in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Sukuna Vessel, Soul Manipulation, Hydrokinesis, Limitless Infinity, and Star Rage. Alright, let's dive right into some of the standout innate techniques in Jujutsu Infinite. If you've been playing this game for a while, you know that picking the right innate can make or break your experience. And today, we're talking about the A-tier ones that will seriously elevate your gameplay. First up, we have Sukuna's Vessel, Demon Vessel. This one is an absolute powerhouse. Not only does it have some amazing buffs, but it also dishes out insane damage. The highlight here is its switch move, which gives you a hefty 25% buff to all your stats. It's one of those techniques that feels like you're playing on easy mode when you get it right, making it a top-tier choice for anyone looking to dominate the battlefield. Next, let's talk about Soul Manipulation. Now, this one is a bit trickier to master, but trust me, the rewards are worth it. If you're good at landing your abilities and stacking those orbs, your DPS can skyrocket. It's not the easiest innate to play, but once you get the hang of it, you'll be melting through enemies like a hot knife through butter. Moving on, we've got Hydrokinesis. This one's a bit more straightforward, offering decent AoE damage and a solid all-around performance. While it might not blow you away with flashy abilities, it's reliable and consistent. If you like to play it safe but still pack a punch, this is definitely a solid pick for your roster. Now, let's get into something that almost made it to S tier. Limitless Infinity. The potential here is huge, no doubt about it. The issue is that the timing for some of its moves can be a bit finicky, and the maximum ability could use a little more punch. Still, if you're able to master the timing, this technique can dish out some of the highest damage in the game, just falling a little short of S tier greatness. It's definitely worth considering if you're into precision and strategic play. Finally, we have Star Rage. This one's got decent damage and can hold its own in PvE, but it has a bit of an awkward side effect. A lot of its moves knock enemies back. This can make it tricky to hit them with your other AoE abilities, so while it's good for single target fights, clearing large groups can be a bit of a headache. If you're playing solo or in controlled environments, it's a solid choice, but don't expect it to be your go-to for crowd control. And that's a wrap on the A-tier innates in Jujutsu Infinite. Each of these has its strengths, and depending on your playstyle, one of them could become your new favorite. Whether you like straightforward power or something that requires a bit more finesse, these techniques have got you covered. The innate techniques in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Curse Queen, Gamble Fever, and Volcano. Alright, let's talk about some of the absolute powerhouse innate techniques in Jujutsu Infinite. If you're looking for moves that can melt enemies in PvE or just want to feel like a total beast, these techniques are the way to go. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on these. First up, we've got Curse Queen. This one is an absolute game changer. When fully maxed out, Jacob's Ladder packs such a punch, you'll be wiping out enemies left and right. The damage is insane, and it's hands down one of the best PvE moves in the entire game. Honestly, it's hard to beat when it comes to sheer destructive power. If you love laying waste to anything that dares to cross your path, this one's for you. Then, there's Gamble Fever. Talk about a long-range beast, it's got damage for days, and the fact that it's an innate means you don't have to worry about cooldowns as much as you would with other abilities. You can just keep raining down destruction from afar. This ability is a great choice for those who prefer to keep their distance but still want to feel like a powerhouse on the battlefield. And last but definitely not least, we have Volcano. I'm not kidding when I say this is probably the most fun PvE skill in the game. The damage? Massive. The AoE? Enormous. It's a complete blast to use, and the results speak for themselves. If you want to feel like you're controlling an actual eruption, this ability will definitely have you feeling like a true force of nature. You can just sit back and watch everything around you get obliterated by the sheer power of this skill. So, if you're looking for game-breaking techniques, these three are absolute must-haves. Whether you're about that raw damage, the fun of massive explosions, or the thrill of long-range destruction, these innate techniques will have you dominating in no time. Trust me, you won't regret adding these to your arsenal. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.